Hello, my dear friends. Maria with Reflect and Reset with Maria and Gina. But Gina is working on an amazing project and we don't want her to lose focus. So I am doing Reflect and Reset with Maria and Gina by myself. But not really by myself because I have an incredible guest today, Reinhard. How are you, Christine?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we are very happy to have Christine here. And we decided to bring Christine because, as many of you know, and I hope everybody knows, that on Friday, March 8th, it is Women International Day. And we are celebrating the entire month of March by bringing guests to our show that are going to empower women and just celebrating women in general. There was a man that was here, actually a patient, and we were talking about how we are celebrating women, and he's like, well, we're always celebrating women, but we do have to do that. So Christine is a coach. It is a professional coach.
Yes.
And we're going to start by asking you, Christine, tell us, what is a professional coach?
Okay, so there's many kinds of coaching. I happen to be an executive and leadership coach, which means that I work with people, typically managers, people who are in leadership positions, who work for companies, who I help them sort of be the best they can be to develop insight and develop their behaviors and their strategies in a way that helps them be the best they can be in their professional capacity. So typically an employer will hire me to work with one of their leadership team members, and we will work on various things that are not only meet the goals of the individual, the client that I'm working for, but also are benefit the company and meet the goals of the company as well.
So how frequent do you meet with the clients?
So every coaching engagement is customized, but typically I like to meet with my clients every other week. That really gives them time. They have busy schedules, they're busy people, right. So that gives them time to fit that into their schedule. Also, we often say that coaching occurs between the sessions, because very often we'll talk about things and changes that the client might want to make, and that 2 weeks in between, or that week in between, gives them an opportunity to maybe try out some of the things that we've talked about, or think further about them, or maybe try some of the tasks that we've talked about, so that they can bring that back to their next coaching session and we can pick up where we left off.
And so you would do this for a period of how long?
So usually, again, it's customized depending on the needs of the individual. But generally, it isn't for less than 6 months, and many coaching engagements will go for a year.
That's great. Mm-hmm. And what kind of results do you find, when you're done with the 6 months?
Mm-hmm. So when they did a study with people who had received coaching, what they found was that the results that they saw that impacted their lives were, the top ones were improved communication skills, increased self-esteem and self-confidence, increased productivity, and improved performance, not just individually, but as part of the team that they worked on, and better work-life balance.
Wow.
So those are the kinds of things that coaching can help somebody work towards.
I'm all about coaching, and I think coaching happens at different levels, whether it's professionally or personally. And I happen to, I'm a mentor. I call it mentor, but really coaching. I have this young lady in California. She probably might be watching, Myra, who we've been talking for about a year, I would say. And it is beautiful to see, and I'm sure that you have the same feeling, that the results of your guidance, because when you're coaching, you're guiding people. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we're running around, or we have this blind spot that we're not realizing the actions that we're taking because of our blind spot. And but today, one of the areas that I want to concentrate with you is to talk about something that a lot of people don't know. And I remember when I heard it, I was like, Imposter Syndrome, like, what the heck is that? So talk to us about the imposter syndrome. And I want to concentrate on women because we are, this show is about empowering our women out there, and we need to understand what the imposter syndrome is. So talk to us about this.
Okay, so the imposter syndrome is just one reason why coaching is really important for women and can be really effective in helping them in their professional lives and in their lives in general. So imposter syndrome refers to high achieving people, and it could be men or women, but largely it's women, who have difficulty owning their own success and accomplishments. They live in fear even when they have achieved success of being found out to be a fraud, that someone's going to discover that they really didn't deserve the success and the accomplishment that they've achieved.
I can tell you that we were talking before the show how you're describing it even at a different level for me, and it just really hit me because I definitely have felt that. I think, as a Latina and as a woman, it's a double whammy. It's like, wow. I mean, the feelings. I remember being an executive director at this practice, for so long. And so many times I did not feel like I belong there. Like, is this real? Like, maybe, are they going to find out that I'm not qualified for this? Even though I was so qualified and was getting results. And it affected me with money, right? This is something that affects women, and maybe that's one of the reasons women make less money than men.
I think that's a big reason, and one of the reasons that women are affected by imposter syndrome more than men is that generally men and women, and certainly not every man or woman, but generally men and women view the world differently. So women tend to view their successes as coming from external factors. I got lucky, I was in the right place at the right time, they were fooled into thinking that I could do this. Well, men tend to attribute their successes to internal factors. Brains, grit, talent, hard work, all the things that you typically think of when you think of success. And then on the flip side, women tend to internalize their mistakes. I'm not smart enough, I didn't prepare enough, I really didn't deserve it anyway, while men will attribute their mistakes to external factors. It was bad timing, it was bad luck, it was somebody else's fault. So the way men and women view the world is different a little bit, and that impacts the imposter syndrome, and it really can impact what you just brought up is that, that gender wage salary gap that everyone knows it exists. We all know that women typically earn about 70% of what men earn in the same job with the same qualifications. And while there's a lot of historical and societal reasons for that discrepancy, I think that the fact that many women don't feel confident enough or feel that they're worth asking for a higher salary can also contribute to that imbalance.
I can tell you that I know that I experienced that, 150%, and it affected me for many, many years. I remember, taking a course. Have you heard of the Landmark Education? So I went through that program for 1 weekend, and then I took another course, and in one of the courses I was challenged to do something that was extremely uncomfortable and that I was afraid of doing. And it ended up that I was going to get a raise, and every year the doctors will come up to me with a 5% raise. And this year, and I would accept it because I did not feel like, I felt like that's what I deserve. If they're saying this is what I deserve, then that's what I deserve. And being a Latina and being a woman, to me, I know that it affected me. So when I took on the challenge of saying no once I was being told that I was getting that 5%. And I said to the doctors, I'm sorry, I cannot accept the 5%. And they looked at me like, what do you mean? And I said, well, if you've done your homework, I need to understand how you came up with the 5%. So if you've done your homework and you have analyzed that is exactly what I deserve. And you've spoken with the accountant, you've spoken with the lawyers that I would deal with, then you could give me the 5%. But I knew that it wasn't right at that moment, because I was challenged to stop and think, am I worth that? And I did my own homework, and I realized how underpaid I was. And ironically, that got me a $30,000 raise.
That's amazing, and that's sort of, although that's a really specific example, but that's
Right.
the kind of thing that we really want to work with women on, really helping them to understand the gap between how they perceive themselves and how other people perceive them, and what is really reality, which is that they really are competent and successful, as opposed to someone who just happened to luck into something or just accepting what people are giving them. So that's a really important piece to help them develop that insight and really help them do a lot of what you did in that process
Right.
to get there.
So this is part of the coaching that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And if women, let's say that I want to hire you, not the company, and individually, I need somebody that can help me empower myself to get to the level that I want to. This is something that people could do also individually?
Yes, I mean, that's one of the instances where I do get hired as a coach. Sometimes a CEO will hire a coach for themselves as opposed to one of their employees, because they need an unbiased person to use as a sounding board, to bounce ideas off of, someone who doesn't have any skin in the game or any agenda of their own in the company, but is really just there for them to be that sounding board and to give them feedback and to ask those hard questions that nobody that works for them is going to do.
Right. So you would have the difficult conversations, I
Yes.
guess. You know, I always say that people avoid the difficult conversations. When I joke around that when I crossed 50, the difficult conversations became easier for me to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, I said, I want to live a life of transparency, that I'm always going to be kind and loving, but if there is something that I see, I don't want to hide it. I want to bring it out in the open, because we tend to do that. And I think, especially when you are in a professional environment, people are afraid, and they're afraid to address the situation, and they continue living in an environment that is not healthy, and people build resentment because of the difficult conversation. So this is something that you sort of coach them to be able to have.
Yes, and particularly women. Women are conflict aversive. They don't want to ruffle the feathers. They're nurturers, right? They want to take care of people. They want people to feel good. But particularly as a leader, you're not necessarily doing your company or even your employees a favor by always being nice. Sometimes you have to have those difficult conversations and give that feedback in a supportive, empathetic way where there's a goal in mind to be constructive. You don't want to be mean, obviously, but you want to have those difficult conversations, because that's how your employees and ultimately your company get better.
Wow. How did you get into this field?
Okay, so I have sort of a unique background. I have a graduate degree in psychology, and I also have a graduate degree in organizational leadership, and I've worked on the executive level in not-for-profits and in government. And the part of my job that I always loved the best was developing new leaders and helping people grow and become leaders within, in their own lives and in their own professions. So that I did that as much as I could, but I had other responsibilities. And I finally made the decision. I went back and I got trained and certified, because there are actual coach training programs that are certified by the International Coaching Federation. And then I got credentialed by the ICF, International Coaching Federation, and decided that this is what I really wanted to spend the rest of my career doing. Was I had enough with budgets and regulations. I wanted to really just help people be the best they could be in their position, and that's how I started my coaching practice, Chrysalis Coaching.
That's great. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, and this is something that it's not always easy to do. We both are entrepreneurs,
Yes.
so. Let's talk about as a woman, like some of the challenges that you had at the beginning when you decided to become an entrepreneur.
Well, I also have a bit of imposter syndrome, and part of me, I worked in the not-for-profit world. We never had to market. We never had to advertise. We didn't have to find clients. They came to us, right? So I had to really sort of come to terms with being able to network and sell myself and promote myself. And even though I got good results when I worked with people, I found it difficult to sort of blow my own horn, so to speak.
Right.
And I had to get past that because I noticed that other people, particularly men, don't have difficulty doing that.
Yes. And that is something that you can, when you're coaching, I'm sure that you bring into the women that, are going through a similar situation, because I think it is. Learning to, we do sales at everything we do. I remember when I first started as, the business here at the medical center, I realized that I used to think that I wasn't into sales. And my son, who is a very good salesman, said to me, Mom, everyone sells. You're selling all the time. You sell to your family, you sell to your friends, how good are you getting what you want, right? So we are all selling. And getting comfortable with who you are, because I know, because even with the medical center, at the beginning, it was hard for me to be so pushy. But I understand, there's a balance of how pushy can you be, getting your information out there. But when you realize, like, you have a mission, like your mission is beautiful. You are going to empower leaders and women also that need that empowerment. So you're doing amazing work. So you don't need to feel like you're tuning your own horn. It's more, this is the amazing mission that you have. And like you said, networking is something that is critical. I mean, I joke around that I am the queen of networking, and people look at me. You know what's funny? People notice, because we post so much on social media, that they ask me if I ever work. So I'm like, so do you ever have time to work? And I'm like, what do you think networking is? Networking is working. It is developing your business through network, right?
And it's interesting, especially for younger women coming up. I've worked with a number of women who have been identified as high potentials in their company, people who were identified as emerging leaders. They were getting ready to take on more positions of responsibility. And so I worked with them to help get them ready for those higher level positions. And the things they have the hardest trouble with are not the nitty-gritty hard-working things. They're hard workers. That's how they were identified as high potentials. But we all know that what makes you successful in one position may not necessarily make you successful in the next position. And what I work with them on are those soft skills that they haven't yet developed in their positions that were more of a line supervisor position. So things like executive presence, effective networking, communication skills, and of course the self-confidence piece.
Yeah. So when it comes to, do you guide them on how to dress and to that level?
I have not had anybody that I've had to say, don't wear that to work. But I would. That would be a feedback that I would give them. And, I would do it in a very supportive, empathetic way that's saying, this is how I'm kind of perceiving this. Do you think that perhaps some other people might perceive you that way at work? And what do you think that says to them? What's that impact? Because what you want to do with coaching, a coach never really gives you the answer. They help you find the answer. Yeah. It's sort of like the saying, if you give a person a fish, they eat for a day, but if you teach them to fish, they'll never go hungry.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what coaching is. It's not giving you the answer or telling you what to do. It's helping you learn to gain insight and strategize so that you can find the answers when we're no longer working together.
Yeah. Self-awareness,
right? Yes, a lot of self-awareness.
Awareness is so important. I listen to a lot of Audible books. I joke around that I'm obsessed with Audible books because I realize that this is such a easy way to be able to get information. And I do this in the morning. And I just finished a book called Primal Leadership. And it was talking about self-awareness. And one of the things that I did from that book was that I went to my staff and I said, I want you to, especially the leadership team, I said, I want you to tell me not what I'm doing well, but I want you to tell me what you feel I'm not doing well. And the reason I was able to do that and sort of stop, because I did it about a year ago, but then you get so busy that you tend not to stop to see what is not working, because we are all imperfect. I mean, it can't be that, we are doing perfect, so there has to be something that's not working. And being aware, to be able to ask your staff and give them the comfort to be able to be honest with you. And I said, you're not going to get in trouble. I want you to be completely honest. But they brought awareness to me that was extremely valuable. And I was able to take action to change certain things that I didn't realize that I was doing.
That's a really incredible exercise that you did with your staff, because, in order to have emotional intelligence, you have to have an awareness of what goes on for you yourself. You have to have that self-awareness. And then you have to have the awareness of how all of that impacts your relationships with other people. Because that's really what emotional intelligence is really being able to navigate and manage those relationships with other people. But without self-awareness, you can't even get started.
You can't even get that. We have to break those walls, right? That we start sort of becoming defensive when we're hearing negative things about us, which is, is not always easy, but being a coach is, you're able to bring that to the table, which is wonderful.
I often in my coaching do what I call 360 interviews, and I have the client identify several people around them, people above them, people below them, people on the same level as them, and I ask some very basic questions to get some information, and then I look for trends and give that feedback to the person, and it's anonymous. I don't tell them who said what, but I always tell my clients, feedback is a gift, and if you take it as a gift, you can really do something with it.
That is powerful, what she just said. It is. But unfortunately, we have built all these walls, and a lot has to do, with our childhood. You're a psychologist. I feel like I've gone through so many years of therapy that I could be my own psychologist now. So I feel like I got a degree in psychology because going back to your childhood, there's so many actions that we have that are so from the subconscious, right? And that is why coaching, being aware, letting people give you feedback. I always say that if there is a reoccurring theme that you're hearing from someone, from the people around you, then they cannot all be wrong. There has to be something that you need to look at, right?
And that's that trend that we look for when we do those 360 interviews. It's certainly not, one person might have an issue with one thing, but if 3 or 4 or 5 people have it, then, that's worth taking a look at, and what can you do about that? And that's really, what coaching is about, is developing that awareness. And then once you can embrace it and accept it, developing strategies to change your behavior so that it's more effective.
How do you think people, with your experience, how do people take that 360 interview?
At first they're a little nervous, and then they're very anxious to hear. Anxious in a good way, like they're anticipating it. They really take it to heart. And I do a feedback summary for my client that no one else sees, even though they were hired by the employer. They don't see that feedback summary. And we spend time going over that, and I ask them to read it. I go over it with them. Then I ask them to take it and read it in between the sessions at least 3 times, and then we come back and we discuss it again, because that really is valuable information. Yeah. How often do you have the opportunity to know what several people around you at work truly and honestly think about some of your skills? And they're very basic questions. What are your strengths? What could you do that would make you stronger? Is there anything else that stands out? Very basic questions, and that's usually a good foundation to what our coaching is. And very often, as the client brings issues to their coaching on during the sessions, we can relate them back to some of that feedback, and it's a very powerful tool for the person. And I've never had a client who resented the statements. They all really did embrace it, in the spirit that it was given, because, we do frame it that this is really constructive. This person is asking. In fact, I have them do the ask to the people that they've chosen to participate in the feedback summary. So
That is
learning to take feedback is
Yeah.
part of the coaching process.
that I think a lot of people need. We all should go through the process.
Mhm.
I definitely promote your profession because I think in many companies, I think most companies, it is hard for the leadership themselves to be able to do what, that 360, right? 360 interview. It is difficult for the leadership to be able to accomplish that. So this is, coaching in general, like I was saying, it is something that we all need. And if you feel that you need personally or professionally, now you know. There is a professional coach that we have right here. How do people get in touch with you?
So I do have a website. It's www.chrysaliscoaching.us, and that's CHRYSALIS.
Beautiful. And so they're able to, if I'm interested, you would go in and you're able to give sort of a proposal of what it would take, for the company to hire you.
Yes, usually if a company wants to hire me, I do what I call bookend meetings. I meet with the person hiring me, not the client that I'm going to work with, but the person hiring me first to sort of find out what's their goal in having this person receive coaching. And then I meet with the client throughout the coaching sessions. I may do a midpoint meeting with their direct supervisor again, and then I do a closing meeting with the direct supervisor, whoever has hired me, to find out if they're satisfied, if there's more that they want me to do, and just to sort of give them an overall summary of the process. Obviously, what goes on in coaching is confidential.
Yeah.
We talk about the process being public, but the content being private. So I can tell the employer, that whether the session, where we are in the sessions, how many sessions we've had, whether the person is showing up for their sessions, but I don't disclose the content. That's between the client and I.
That's very, very
And they have to
powerful.
understand that going in, that they will not get that from me.
Well, I guess, to be able to get results, you need to be able to have confidentiality, and
It's a safe
people need
place.
to be safe with you. So this has been very, very informative, and we want to repeat. I want to close with going back to the imposter syndrome. What can women do, especially, to empower themselves to deal with the imposter syndrome?
So there are a few things that anybody who suffers from imposter syndrome can do. And we all have it to a certain extent. And for some people, it can be really debilitating. It can really stop them from doing things. So the first thing to do is recognize what I call the voice in your head. There's something in your head that's saying something to you, and to note what it is. For me, it was always, you're not always going to get lucky, or you're not going to get lucky this time. That's what my voice in my head says when I have to face a new challenge. And what you want to do is create a response to that voice so that you can answer that voice in your head and turn it around. And my response is always, I don't need to be lucky. I've got skills.
I love it. I love it. Your mind is so powerful, and we speak to ourselves all the time, and we find ourselves usually talking negative.
Of course.
That is a mindset that we need to learn to switch. And I love what you just said, to be able to have an answer to the questions or the direction that your mind is taking you. And that is, what else will you say are there any articles, are there any books that you would recommend?
There's so much out there on imposter syndrome. It's sort of exploded in the media because so many people who are famous and incredibly accomplished that you wouldn't believe have started to talk about experiencing it. So if you just Google imposter syndrome, you'll find all kinds of material and information
that is true, because I am preparing to do my Facebook Live next week on the imposter syndrome, but I'm going to do it in Spanish for our Latino community. I want to thank you all. First, I want to thank you so much for joining us. You did an amazing job.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Yes, you gave us so much information, and I want you, if you like us, if you like the information that we're giving you, please make sure you like us on social media. And also, you could always reach me. I have many friends out there that if there are topics that you want me to come and bring to the Facebook Lives that we're doing that would be of interest to you, let me know. But we are here to provide information for you, to empower you, and to all the women out there that are looking at this Facebook Live, please take care of yourself, and more than anything, believe in yourself. We have so much power as women. You have many gifts. Make sure you remember that, okay? Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.